Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Saturday the 9th of July 2022. Well, I hope everybody's enjoying the weather as much as we are. It can get a little warm in the office, but with the windows open, it really is such a delight to be in this British summer finally. I'm also delighted to announce that we'll be advertising for 2 new members of staff. With the level of the work that the charity is doing increasing every week, literally day on day, we will be appointing a finance officer, as this is a role that I have been doing as well as the CEO role, and a new operations manager who will manage all of the day-to-day activities of the charity. We will be interviewing as soon as possible with a view to start in early August. Next week is newsletter week, so if anybody does have any more articles, please do let us know as soon as possible. We like to get the newsletter in and ready by the 15th of July. Wishing everybody an enjoyable weekend. Thank you, Lisa.
Site for Wight sees successful launch of new eye healthcare awareness campaign from Island Echo, read by Chris. Isle of Wight charity Site for Wight's latest eye healthcare awareness campaign, specifically aimed at primary school children, was launched last Tuesday, 28th of June. Primary schools across the island donned their hats and sunglasses throughout the day to highlight the importance of protecting our eyes from the sun's harmful UVA and UVB rays. The charity, which is celebrating 155 years of supporting people on the island living with all levels of sight loss, produced an educational and fun video that was shown on the day, appropriately entitled "Be Wise, Protect Your Eyes," with every primary school on the island provided with a copy free of charge to show on the day. Lisa Hollyhead, Site for Wight's CEO, said, "We did it. We successfully united the whole of the island by engaging with every single primary school on the same day. And what a tremendous success it was, with the message going out to our children loud and clear. Children's eyes are more susceptible to the harmful UVA and UVB rays that can lead to age-related macular degeneration and cataracts. The earlier we protect our eyes, the less likelihood of such conditions forming as we get older." Lisa also said, "Every penny donated to Site for Wight remains on the island to help each and every islander living with any level of sight loss live a safe, independent and confident life."
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Boris Johnson to resign as Prime Minister. Following a series of cabinet resignations over the past couple of days, Boris Johnson has now taken the decision to resign as Prime Minister. Sky News has reported that Mr Johnson spoke to Tory 1922 Committee Chairman Sir Graham Brady and agreed to stand down, with a new Tory leader set to be in place by the party conference in October, a Number 10 source said. It comes after his newly appointed Education Secretary, Michelle Donnellan, resigned after 36 hours in the post. Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi told the Prime Minister to go now, and Defence Secretary Ben Wallace withdrew his support. It follows intense pressure from party colleagues, with dozens of resignations within government from cabinet level down. Rishi Sunak resigned as Chancellor and Sajid Javid quit as Health Secretary on Tuesday night. That prompted a flood of resignations from government, as Tory MPs said they could no longer support a leader who has lied over the appointment of Deputy Chief Whip Chris Pincher, plunging the PM into further crisis. "We need a change of Prime Minister," says Isle of Wight MP Bob Seeley. At PMQs on Wednesday, he dismissed calls to quit. The resignation began after Downing Street insisted the PM did not know about 2019 allegations of inappropriate behaviour against disgraced MP Mr Pincher before appointing him as Deputy Chief Whip in February. On Wednesday, Number 10 admitted Mr Johnson in fact had known about the claims and subsequent investigation. Cabinet Minister Michael Ellis said the PM did not immediately recall he had been told in 2019, but had been reminded. Mr. Pincher resigned last week after further allegations about him groping two men at a private club last Wednesday. He was then suspended from the Conservative Party. Former senior civil servant Lord MacDonald said on Tuesday morning Mr. Johnson had known about the 2019 allegations and accused him of lying when he said he did not. He said the claims were similar to those from last week.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Red Funnel staff vote in favour of strike action over pay. Staff at Red Funnel have voted for strike action, which could cause serious disruption to cross-Solent travel this summer. Fran Collins, Chief Executive at Red Funnel, has said that she is disappointed that members of Unite the Union have voted to go ahead with industrial action. Unite the Union members represent 20% of Red Funnel's workforce, so any strike will have a huge impact. At this stage, Unite has not communicated dates for strike action. However, it is obliged to give 2 weeks' notice ahead of any action. This means that there will be no strikes before the 19th of July. The row over pay comes after Unite members demanded a 16% pay rise in December last year, with discussions having been ongoing since Christmas time. Red Funnel has offered 6.3% for roles within the collective bargaining unit and 4.5% for all other roles, above many recent pay settlements within the same sector. The Cross-Solent operator says that the pay claim should have been settled for the start of 2022. So whilst the business is sympathetic to today's inflation levels, they are not relevant to this pay claim. Fran Collins, CEO at Red Funnel, has said, "I am incredibly disappointed that members have voted for strike action. Our priority, as always, is to ensure that the island remains connected and that we continue to provide the lifeline services that so many rely on. We have prepared robust contingency plans to ensure essential services are maintained and to minimise disruption as far as possible. We will issue a revised timetable by Tuesday the 12th of July, and we will contact all customers directly affected by any changes. We can confirm that customers with bookings between the 5th and 19th of July will not be affected by industrial action. We are keen to recognise and reward all colleagues, particularly during these uncertain times. However, we must be realistic in terms of what the business can afford to ensure we continue to provide lifeline services for our customers, promoting the long-term success of the island economy."
Hi everyone, this is Steve reading a story from the Island Echo, headlined Princess Royal to visit the Isle of Wight in July and August. Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal is set to visit the Isle of Wight later this month, and again at the start of August, it has been revealed. Princess Anne, a regular visitor to the island, will be crossing the Solent on 26th of July to carry out a number of engagements. During her visit, Princess Anne will head to UKSA in Cowes, where she will officially open a new 136-bed accommodation facility. Her last visit to the Arctic Road-based youth charity was in October 2020. On the same day, Mountbatten Isle of Wight will welcome Her Royal Highness to their hospice at Halberry Lane in Newport, where the hospice's 45th anniversary will be marked. A visit will also be undertaken to Cheetah Marine on the Esplanade in Ventnor. Just over a week later, on the 6th of August, Princess Anne will return to the Isle of Wight to attend the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Sailing Review at Osborne House. It's understood that a motor past fleet review will take place in Osborne Bay from 11 a.m. It all comes just over a year since Princess Anne was last seen on the island during a series of surprise engagements at the Royal Yacht Squadron, the Royal Victoria Yacht Club and Ryde School. Further details are expected to be revealed closer to the time.
This is Den reading an article from the Island Echo. 30 degrees centigrade expected this weekend, with no end in sight for heatwave conditions. Things are about to hot up on the Isle of Wight, with 30 degrees centigrade expected this weekend, potentially increasing to 35 degrees centigrade as we move further into July, with no rain in the forecast for the foreseeable future. Forecasters at IW Met Service say that the temperature will rise as the week goes on, with a very summery 30 degrees expected at the weekend. Clouds will make way for bright sunny days, with early suggestions that it will continue to be that way for some time. Although weather models are varying, early indicators are that the dry weather will continue with very high temperatures at times this month. The high pressure looks like it will be remaining in charge, which means very warm, dry weather across the island. Next week could see the island hitting the mid-30s, warns Chief Forecaster Jamie Russell. Jamie says, so to summarise, it looks like being a very protracted spell of warmth and dry weather with no clearly defined end in sight. We will of course keep you updated as the warmth develops, along with what is now becoming drought conditions in some parts. Outlook for the next few days. Wednesday looks set to be a rather cloudy day, and even though it should feel fairly pleasant at times, out of the breeze and in any brightness, the breeze will make it feel quite cool. Temperature 21 to 23 degrees centigrade, in a moderate northwesterly becoming southwesterly breeze. Thursday will see more in the way of sunshine developing, and even though there will still be a fair amount of cloud drifting around, it will begin to feel much warmer, despite the breeze. Temperature 23 to 25 degrees centigrade in a moderate to fresh northerly breeze. Friday will be another fine, dry day with occasional sunshine, but also a fair amount of cloud drifting about once again, perhaps a little more than on Thursday. The temperatures will still be slowly creeping upwards. Temperature 25 to 27 degrees centigrade in a light to moderate northerly breeze. Saturday will be another very warm day with sunny spells across the island. It will begin to feel rather hot in places due to the light winds. However, cooling sea breezes are expected around the coasts. Temperature 26 to 28 degrees centigrade in a light to moderate northerly breeze. Sunday will be very warm with long sunny spells. It will be cooler around the coasts as sea breezes will develop here, but inland it will feel very warm or even hot at times. Temperature 26 to 28 degrees centigrade in a light becoming moderate south to southwesterly breeze.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. Newport Board Game Cafe voted one of the best in country by experts. A board game cafe in Newport has been voted as one of the best of its kind in the country. Snacks and Ladders of St James's Street in Newport were voted in the top 12 board game cafes in the UK after a ranking list was compiled by popular industry outlet Dicebreaker. The cafe boasts a library of over 600 games and serves snacks, hot food, desserts and drinks. Dicebreaker stated that the extensive menu choices made Snacks and Ladders a real hit among customers, while the customizable pizzas and burgers and design your own desserts made it a brilliant place to eat. In their review, they also said that the theme nights at the cafe that raised money for local charities made it a place to visit for board game fans and non-fans alike. The full review from Dicebreaker on Snacks and Ladders can be read online.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Kids smoking cannabis in bin store prompts fire service call out. Reports of smoke issuing from a communal bin store in East Cowes led to the turnout of 2 fire appliances, but it transpired to be kids smoking cannabis. A concerned member of the public alerted Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service to the smoke on Monk's Walk off Beatrice Avenue at 21:37. 2 appliances from East Cowes and Newport were mobilised to the scene. Upon arrival, entry was made to the bin store where 2 youths were discovered smoking drugs. They were swiftly told to be on their way. Positive pressure ventilation was used to rid smoke from the building before crews stood down from the incident.
Hi, this is Steve reading a story from Island Echo, headlined, People First Plan for Newport will result in loss of high street parking. £3 million plans that could shift the priority from vehicles to pedestrians in key areas of Newport will go before senior councillors next week, but if the plans are approved, it will mean a loss of vital high street parking. The People First zone proposals have been drawn up to significantly improve the accessibility and appearance of the High Street and St James's Square, with wider pavements and clear, unobstructed walking routes. The plans were developed by a community design panel made up of design professionals, local residents, businesses and user groups as part of the Newport High Street Heritage Action Zone programme to regenerate the High Street. Just 182 responses were received during a 6-week consultation period, with 32% against the idea. It's hoped the redevelopment will create a vibrant town centre where residents can move around freely and easily, with room to stop and browse in shop windows or socialise in a more people-friendly space. There are also hopes that it will help stimulate further private investment from building owners and local businesses, further enhancing the street scene. The key proposals include removal of 22 parking spaces between St James's Street and Holyridge Street, wider pavements on both sides of the High Street, narrowing the road to encourage drivers to slow down, extending St James's Square to provide new public space around the Victoria Memorial, new areas of planting, more seating and cycle racks installed in clusters to minimise clutter, 3 new dedicated parking days for disabled people on the High Street, and the extension of the High Street loading bay. What is unclear is whether the red carpet will be ripped up in St James's Square, as it is already a tight fit for buses heading towards the bus station. Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, the Cabinet Member for Regeneration and Business Development, said, "This is part of a series of actions which aim to bring out the town's rich heritage while looking to the future needs of a changing town centre which needs to become a place full of diverse activities where people want to spend time. We want to create a public realm to be proud of. Our historic streets and squares are peppered with fantastic historic buildings, and the surroundings should provide a suitable setting for them, while the health and environmental benefits of greening our town centre cannot be ignored." Councillor Phil Jordan, the Cabinet Member for Transport and Infrastructure, added, "As traffic has grown over the years, cars and other vehicles have gradually dominated the town centre's streets. The environment for people walking around parts of the town could be improved, and changes to the area will encourage residents and visitors to linger and spend time in the town. The People First Zone seeks to create an environment in the town centre that puts the needs of people first. The report, to be considered by Cabinet next Thursday, that's the 14th of July, also seeks support for the Council to work towards reducing the volume and size of vehicles using the High Street by developing alternative routes around the town centre.
This is Den reading an article from the Island Echo. Motorcyclist who broke his back and pelvis in Elmfield crash found to be drug driving. A motorcyclist who was involved in a serious collision back in March was twice the drug drive limit at the time of the crash, a court has heard. Daniel Thorpe, 35, of Cross Street in Oakfield, pleaded guilty to 1 count of drug driving when he appeared in front of the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Thursday morning. As previously reported by Island Echo, Thorpe collided with a VW Golf whilst on his Yamaha YZF-R1 motorcycle on High Park Road in Elmfield on the 7th of March 2022. At the hearing, Anne Smout, prosecuting, told the court that Thorpe had tried to overtake a slow-moving vehicle. When overtaking, he moved into the middle of the road and collided with the other vehicle, a black VW Golf, which was travelling significantly quicker. Both vehicles failed to stop in time, leading to a significant smash. Shortly after the impact, the driver of the other vehicle quickly fled the scene, leaving Thorpe on the road with multiple injuries and his bike severely damaged. Once he was tended to by emergency services, Thorpe did a roadside drugs wipe which indicated positive for cannabis. He completed a blood test which later returned a result of benzoylecgonane, a breakdown of cocaine, at 106 units, double the legal limit of 50. The 35-year-old has 2 previous convictions, having been charged with possession of cannabis and cocaine back in 2016 and in 2006 was charged with drink driving. In defence, Jim Osborne said that his client had suffered multiple injuries after the crash, including a broken back and pelvis, and that he now suffers from serious mobility issues. He also said that his client had consumed cocaine on the previous Friday and didn't know it would still be in his system on the Monday. Thorpe was handed a 12-month disqualification from driving, ordered to pay £120 fine, £85 costs and £34 surcharge fee.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. UCOG give up right to drill for oil on the Isle of Wight. Gas and oil firm UK Oil and Gas, UCOG, has given up all hopes of drilling on the Isle of Wight 10 months after plans for an exploratory well were thrown out. Campaigners opposed to the plans have welcomed the announcement. In its weekend newsletter, Don't Drill the Wight said it was delighted. Last week, UCOG told investors it had relinquished its petroleum exploration development licence for the island. The announcement was made in an interim update to the London Stock Exchange. The exclusive licence to seek and produce oil here was granted by the government in 2016 and covered over 200 square kilometres of land, more than half of the Isle of Wight, including beauty spots in the West Wight and at Arraton. UCOG believed nearly 15 million barrels of oil could be recovered, and its licence, PEDL 331, was due to run until July 2023, with a plan for 2 oil well sites. In October, a proposal for the first, an exploratory site in Arraton, was thrown out by the Isle of Wight Council. Members of its planning committee unanimously refused the borehole application due to its potential impact on tourism and demonstrable impact on the island's natural environment. In March, UCOG said it would not appeal that decision, but did not confirm the future of a second site in Godshill. By relinquishing its PED licence, UCOG would not be allowed to drill or explore for oil on the Isle of Wight. Arraton's councillor, Susie Ellis, said she was very glad to read the news. She said, coupled with the recent announcement they would not be appealing the planning committee's unanimous decision to refuse their application, It is a welcome reassurance that UCOG no longer has an interest in Arraton.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Out with the old, in with the new. Lifeguard HQ in Sandown revamped. Sandown's new lifeguard headquarters were installed last weekend ahead of the busy summer, after the old one was no longer fit for purpose. As previously reported by Island Echo in April, plans had been put forward to upgrade the existing station after storm damage, COVID-19 restrictions and a collapsed gazebo had made it difficult to work effectively. The yellow container, funded by a successful National Lottery grant by Ryde Beach Lifeguards and Sandown Town Council, will provide the lifeguards with a clearly visible, purpose-built building, enabling the team to have clear observation of the whole beach, as well as to perform first aid safely and to have the ability to tend to visitors out of the way of the elements. The new base is thanks to Sandown Town Council's support and commitment to the beach lifeguard service, as well as the hard work of those at STC, Inspiration Fabrication and Ryde Beach Lifeguards, who helped to bring the project to fruition. It sits on the Esplanade Beach between the Avenue Road Slipway and Sandown Pier. Todd Miller, beach manager of Ryde Beach Lifeguards, said, "I am over the moon with the new Beach Lifeguard HQ at Sandown. It will make the world of difference to the lifeguards and enable them to see everyone with a lot more ease, as well as enabling them to get out of the elements on those hot summer days. I cannot thank Sandown Town Council, the National Lottery and Inspiration Fabrication for bringing this vision to reality."
This is Den reading an article from Island Echo. Smouldering disposable barbecue prompts call out for freshwater firefighters. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service are reminding locals and visitors about the dangers of disposable barbecues following a call out to Golden Hill on Wednesday morning. One appliance from Freshwater was mobilised following reports that a disposable barbecue had been left smouldering and unattended. Firefighters damped down the area and fortunately no widespread damage occurred. It was just 3 days ago that Island Echo reported on calls from the Woodland Trust urging visitors to its woods and the countryside in general to bin barbecues this summer and avoid the catastrophic impact of fires on wildlife and nature. A spokesperson from Freshwater Fire Station has said, "We have attended many fires in recent years where these barbecues have been carelessly discarded, including just a few weeks ago where one had been left smouldering in a bin next to Totland Shop, causing fire spread to the outside of the shop. Please, if you must use these barbecues, dispose of them safely and sensibly and help us to protect our beautiful island."
Hi everyone, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio, headlined Isle of Wight's Adam Hose called up to cricket's England Lions squad. The Isle of Wight cricketer Adam Hose has been called up to the England Lions squad for 2 forthcoming fixtures. Hose, who is arguably in the form of his career, has been starring for Birmingham Bears in the Vitality Blast, leading them to a quarter-final showdown against Hampshire Hawks this Thursday, that's the 7th. The 29-year-old former Ventnor batsman has been rewarded for his terrific recent performances by being drafted into the 13-player squad for England Lions 2 Royal London 50-over internationals against South Africa, starting on July the 12th at the Cooper Associates County Ground in Taunton. The Bears had already made it into the quarter-finals of the Vitality Blast, where Hose top-scored for the visitors again with 50, as they narrowly lost to Lancashire Lightning. Mo Bobat, the ECB Performance Director, said, It's always great when we can bring some of our best and highest potential players together, particularly to take on senior international opposition. The two games provide an excellent opportunity to continue to grow our depth and assess players' readiness for England. The squad reflects a balance of England's next best players and some future players of note, as well as high performers from this season's Vitality Blast campaign. With these games coming at the same time as the England ODIs versus India and a county championship round, we are very appreciative of the collaborative approach of counties enabling us to field strong teams. The first match at Taunton will permit full squad participation to facilitate South Africa team preparation for the international white ball programme, but the second match at Worcester will be played as an 11-a-side List A match. England men's assistant coach Paul Collingwood has been appointed head coach for the two matches. The Royal London Men's International schedule includes the first 50-over match between England Lions and South Africa on Tuesday, July the 12th at Cooper's Associate County Ground in Taunton with an 11am start, and the second 50-over match features England Lions versus South Africa on July 14th at New Road in Worcester, again with an 11am start.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. Funfair heading to the Isle of Wight this summer, but not to St Helens or Ryde. The Isle of Wight will once again play host to the annual Summer Funfair this year, but after more than 30 years, St Helens has been dropped from the lineup, as has Ryde. Traditionally held on the Green each August bank holiday to tie in with the sports and carnival events, the travelling Funfair has been visiting the village of St Helens for as long as anyone can remember. However, for 2022, the decision has been made by Carnival Funfairs to miss St Helens altogether. In the past, the Funfair moved on from St Helens to Simeon Street in Ryde, but that too came to an end in the 2000s. Then, in 2016, the annual event returned to the seaside town, taking up position at Quay Street car park. But just 6 years later, of which 2 years have been marred by COVID, the Funfair will once again be missing from Ryde during Carnival Week. It will still head to the Green in Yarmouth, 8th to the 16th of July, Yaverland Car Park in Sandown, 21st of July to the 7th of August, Seaclose Park in Newport, 11th to the 14th of August, and the Garlic Festival, 20th to the 21st of August. There will also be a name change to this year's iteration, with it now called Kids Zone Family Fun Park, as opposed to Carnival Funfair, as it was known before. With the new name, it is believed more emphasis will be on the kids, with the company stating there will be kiddies rides, inflatables, and an on-site food court. It is unsure as to what adult rides there will be, with the Funfair already decreasing in size over the past 10 years. The same token system will be in place when it comes to ride admissions, with the price of one token set at £1.20. There will also be bundle deals available.
Before we start the second part of the Talking News, here is this week's Society News, read by Jerry
and Kate. Swimming is held every Monday at Medina Leisure Centre, Newport, between 1:30 and 2:30 p.m, and the charity has the whole use of the pool, and the cost is £5 plus transport if required.
We are holding a fundraising meeting at Millbrook on Monday at 1 p.m. Come along, all very welcome.
On Tuesday, we have our monthly lunch club at the 8 Bells, Carisbrooke, at 12:30 p.m. Please let Susan know if you wish to attend by Monday afternoon.
Coffee and chat is on every Wednesday at Millbrook House, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Only £1 for cake and coffee. Please come along for a chat, and members of staff will be there for any assistance with equipment and information.
10-pin bowling this week is on the second Wednesday of the month, meaning it's this Wednesday the 13th between 1pm and 2pm at LA Bowl Ride.
We have now started preparing for Newport Carnival on July the 23rd, and we would love our members, staff, volunteers and families to take part in the parade. The carnival starts at 7pm and the route is around 2 miles, but do not worry if you're unable to walk that far. You can sit in the minibus or car and wave to the crowds promoting the charity. We would like representatives of all our activities to take part and show the Isle of Wight what we do and how we help islanders living with sight loss. If you would like to join us, please call either Susan or Jasmine for more details. If you are interested in helping paint, glue and prepare costumes, we are meeting on Monday morning at 10am Millbrook House.
One of our members is completing his second sponsored swim in support of our charity. It's at the West Wight Sports Centre Freshwater tomorrow from 11am. If you would like to sponsor him, please call the office on 522 205 and payment can be made over the phone. We would like to thank John for all his fundraising for the charity. It is very much appreciated. Now we do the news items and sport.
Car on roof closes village road. A car ended up on its roof in Godshill and a road was closed after a crash on Wednesday morning. The accident happened on Newport Road at its junction with Dubbers. According to police, the vehicle's occupants escaped with minor injuries but were taken to hospital as a precaution. The road reopened later in the morning.
Our MP wants a trawl ban. The island's MP wants an end to the type of fishing called bottom trawling, where weighted nets are dragged across the seabed. Speaking in a Westminster debate on June the 28th, Bob Seeley said, "I think there would be very strong support on the island for a ban in all marine protected areas." He wants a marine reserve for the island, which would only allow fishing and activities that do not damage the seabed. The government is to ban bottom trawling in 4 areas.
Commonwealth Baton makes flying visit to Ireland. Scores of islanders gathered in Ryde for the arrival of the Commonwealth Games Queen's Baton on Wednesday evening. The baton itself was brought to our shores by Nicholas Early of Shorewell. The 20-year-old, who works at Wight Mountain Bicycle Shop, was chosen from 8,000 candidates to carry the baton. Nicholas, who beat cancer twice and underwent a stem cell transplant back in October 2019, described it as an honour. Together with his brother Matthew, he cycled from Scotland to the Isle of Wight last year. Arriving at the hover travel landing pad, he was greeted by islanders and stopped to take pictures and chat. The baton was supposed to then be taken to Waterside Pool and stop at the Grade 2 listed Apley Tower, but those plans were scuppered due to delays to the journey. Among those in attendance was MP Bob Seeley, Isle of Wight Council Leader Laura P.C. Wilcox and Ryde Mayor Michael Lilly.
Russian vodka is still on the shelves at an island store. When is a ban on Russian products not a ban on Russian products? That is the question supermarket giants Asda are being asked by a county press reader this week, after he spotted a brand of vodka proudly displaying the label "distilled and bottled in Russia," some 4 months after Asda banned Russian products. In solidarity with Ukraine, Asda announced in March that it was removing Russian goods from sale. But Dave Rose from Wootton was surprised to find J.J. Whitley's distinctive bottles still on sale, proudly stating its Russian heritage in Asda's Newport store. Dave sympathised with the distiller's decision to immediately transfer its production of vodka from Russia to Chorley in Lancashire, but he couldn't see why Asda is not removing the Russian bottles. He complained to the company, but was less than satisfied with the response. Dave told the county press, "I would have hoped that the Asda internal store instruction should have meant that the J.J. Whitley Russian-produced vodka should be immediately cleared from the shelves, and that at a later date, when the clearly repackaged UK-produced J.J. Whitley vodka was available, then that new stock could have been displayed and sold. It makes no sense to me to remove the Russian vodka if at a later date the very same Russian vodka is put back on the shelves." Asda, when contacted by the county press, said it would make little sense to remove the Whitley products given the company's decision to remove production from Russia. A spokesperson for Asda said, "In March, we removed all Russian products from our shelves in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. Since then, a number of brands, including Whitley's vodka, have relocated their production to the UK, which is why we are happy to stock these products." J.J. Whitley has said its parent company Halewood was 100% against the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and it stood with Ukraine, which was its biggest export market.
New barriers at Causeway. Work to replace traditional barriers at the Causeway in Freshwater has been completed after a long wait of several years. The project began in June following lengthy discussions between Island Roads and the Isle of Wight Council over the most suitable way of providing safe barriers in keeping with the unique rural surroundings. The work required other consents given the location's environmental importance as a site of special scientific interest, a special area conservation, a special protection area, an area of outstanding national beauty, and a designated Ramsar site as a renowned waterfowl habitat. The work has seen the installation of a new but traditional looking post and rail system using English oak posts supplied by local company Chessel Woodyard. Councillor John Medland, Isle of Wight Council member for Freshwater South, said, "I am delighted to see these works finally completed after 4 years of temporary barriers in an iconic local beauty spot. These repairs are just what the local community has been asking for." Island Roads construction manager Keith Gourlay said, "I understand and share the local frustrations regarding the timescales getting through the agreement stages, but we're pleased the work is getting good feedback and we're happy to have worked with Chessel Woodyard, who were extremely helpful."
A drug delivering drone trial is planned. The NHS on the island is to use drones to courier chemotherapy drugs to speed up the delivery of vital medicines. It is hoped that using drone technology will one day enable doctors to make same-day delivery orders for drugs and medical equipment from anywhere in the country. A pilot scheme is to be launched to assess using drone technology in the health service. The trial will see a drone delivering chemotherapy drugs from the pharmacy at Portsmouth Hospitals University NHS Trust to St Mary's Hospital. The drone will cut delivery times to the island from 4 hours to 30 minutes, as one flight will replace 2 car journeys and 1 hovercraft or ferry journey per delivery. NHS England officials said chemotherapy is difficult to transport as some doses have a short shelf life. As well as saving time and money, the new delivery method, launched in partnership with tech company Apian, will offer a better option for cancer patients living on the island, many of whom have to travel to the mainland for treatment, officials added. The drone programme will be trialled initially in the island, followed by Northumbria. Amanda Pritchard, Chief Executive NHS England, announced the pilot as the health service marked its 74th birthday this week. She said delivering chemo by drone is another extraordinary development for cancer patients and shows how the NHS will stop at nothing to ensure people get the treatment they need as promptly as possible, while also cutting costs and carbon emissions. As the NHS turns 74, it is clear that the pace of change and improvement across the health service is only accelerating as our fantastic staff seek to make the most of life-changing advances to improve patients' lives, as we promised in the NHS long-term plan. Darren Cattell, Interim Chief Executive of the Isle of Wight NHS Trust, said, "The island has a long history of innovation. We're excited to continue that tradition by utilising the latest technology to overcome the challenges we face and to provide the very best service to our patients."
Rural villages lose vital bus services. Southern Vectus buses will not run through Thorley, Wellow or Newbridge for nearly 5 weeks, sparking fury from the rural villages' residents. Southern Water is currently working to replace a water main in Station Road, Ningwood. A spokesperson for Island Roads told the county press smaller vehicles can pass the site, but larger vehicles, such as buses, cannot and are therefore being diverted. The Route 7 buses between Calbourne and Yarmouth have been diverted via Calbourne Road and Wilmington Lane in both directions, skipping Newbridge, Wellow and Thorley until the works are completed on July the 25th. The closure means the nearest stops are at Wilmington Lane for Thorley and Wellow and Calbourne Cross for Newbridge. Wilmington Lane has no pavement, and the bus stops in both directions can be found in overgrown hedges. That is not good enough for Deborah Wagstaff, whose neighbours' children cannot get to school, while her 77-year-old dad Norman, who lives in Thorley, will have to travel 1.6 miles to the bus stop or potentially face isolation until the end of July. Deborah said, "It is inconceivable that my dad, with his walking stick and poor mobility, should have to walk 1.6 miles to the busy country road to wait in a hedge to catch a bus." This decision-making is slapdash, without even considering the elderly residents and school children for 5 weeks. It's a joke. Perhaps those who closed the road would like to pay my fuel bill to take my dad by car to Yarmouth to catch a bus and return journey every day for the next 5 weeks. A spokesperson from Island Roads said, "Whilst it is for the bus company to plan its diversion routes, we have been liaising with Southern Vectus and Southern Water's contractors to look at local solutions, particularly to school bus transport. These talks are ongoing, but our understanding is that Southern Water contractors have agreed to fund an alternative bus for school children. The works are due to finish on the 25th of July, and we will continue both to monitor progress and to work with partners to address any transport issues that arise."
Keeping Isle of Wight verges neat, tidy and green. Work to maintain acres of roadside verges and amenity grassland area is in full swing. The verge maintenance programme undertaken by Island Roads is designed to strike a balance between keeping the network safe and encouraging biodiversity. Island Roads is responsible for cutting 743,000 square metres of verges in rural areas, nearly 140,000 square metres with environmental designations, 127,000 square metres of verges needing particular attention for safety reasons, and 433,000 square metres of other amenity verges, largely in residential areas. Dave Wallace of Island Roads Operations and Maintenance Manager said, "The current work programme is varied in that we take different approaches to different types of verges. It is a balancing act between keeping the network safe by ensuring there is good visibility at bends and at junctions, meeting our environmental responsibilities, and also providing a value for money service. Rural verges are cut twice annually between March and November. To maintain habitat, only the first metre is cut. Verges with environmental protections are cut less frequently, once a year between July and November, as specified by Natural England. Again, just the first metre is cut. Cutting to aid visibility at junctions and bends takes place 4 times a year, and in some locations the entire verge will be cut. The amenity areas are cut 5 times a year. In most cuttings, a flailing plate is used. This means the cut grass is distributed more evenly, so removed vegetation doesn't restrict the regrowth of other wildflowers. Dave said, "We're very mindful of maintaining the verges in an environmentally sensitive manner, and we are happy to work with environmental groups and local communities to investigate new approaches." One such partnership has seen Island Roads work with the island's AONB project, the Isle of Wight Association of Local Councils, and Chillerton, Gatcombe and Shorewell parish councils on a flexible verge maintenance regime, with biodiversity very much in mind. Dave added, "That is working really well, and while resources mean there is a limit to how much of this flexible approach we're able to adopt, there is some capacity to expand this approach, and we would be happy to speak to local communities about this."
Nick wins gold ahead of games. Islander Nick Percy must surely be a medal favourite for the forthcoming Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, after scooping discus gold at the UK Athletics Championships in Manchester. He was all smiles after throwing more than 65 metres for the first time in his discus career, on his way to breaking his own Scottish throwing record for an incredible 4th time this season. Conditions were tricky due to the blustery winds at the Manchester Arena. Nick said, "It was windy, but you could use that if you caught it right. I knew that 1 was a big throw when it left my hand, but as soon as I heard 65, I didn't even wait to listen to the centimetres. I was ecstatic, with another personal best and another consistent series of throws. It's been the story of my whole year. I'm glad that at just the right time I actually got a big throw at the National Championship and at a World Championship qualifying event." Nick threw out to 65 metres in a series that featured 2 other throws beyond 64 metres and one at 63.92 metres, as he continues a superb 2022. His 4 best throws would have won the championship alone. Following the competition, UK Athletics confirmed the next elections for the World Championships to be held in Oregon within a team of 78 athletes. Nick flew out to the United States on Sunday for 12 days of acclimatation training to complete in the qualifying rounds in Eugene, Oregon on July the 17th. Following these championships, Nick has been selected to compete at the Commonwealth Games for Team Scotland. It's been an incredible week, breaking the Scottish national record and being selected for my 2nd World Championships. The World Athletics Championships and the Commonwealth Games will be televised on the BBC.
Millie achieves her dream in Montreal. Last weekend, Isle of Wight talented athlete and Wight Tri member Millie Williams achieved her dream of competing in the World Age Group Championships in Montreal, Canada. Millie had 2 races to compete in, and on Saturday in the individual sprint triathlon, she finished in 10th place overall and first GB female, giving her automatic qualification for next year's World Sprint Championships in Hamburg. She swam solidly to exit the St Lawrence River in 11th position, then worked her way up through the field on the bike leg to 3rd place. However, she couldn't quite hold on during the run, with temperatures in the mid-30s, and finished in 1 hour, 10 minutes and 46 seconds. Back out on the Sunday afternoon in the mixed team relay, Millie was selected for the anchor leg, and she helped bring Team GB home to win the silver medal just behind Mexico. She was the fastest GB female across all age groups in the relay. An elated Millie said, "The feeling of winning silver at my first World Championships is still sinking in. I'm very proud of our team. I felt very emotional." Her coach, Simon Pilcher, said, "Millie learned so much this weekend after coming down with a horrible sickness bug 2 days before the race. She really had to suck it up and put on her game face. To then go and compete hard and lay it all on the line when you're only 80% fit takes huge courage. If she continues with the same attitude and work ethic, she'll continue to improve. Millie deserves all of the success with those 2 fantastic performances." Millie thanked everybody who supported her GoFundMe appeal, including the garlic farm where she works. Another Wight tri-member and Isle of Wight Talented Award athlete Liz Dunlop was in Montreal competing in her 12th World Championship. Veteran triathlete of 33 years, Liz finished 7th from 37 in the 65 to 69 age group, despite not being fully fit after last year's injury and a recent B12 deficiency diagnosis. She came home as the 3rd GB athlete, so she has also qualified to compete in Hamburg.
Bikers to ride out in memory of Gordon. A memorial ride held to honour popular local biker Gordon Endler takes place tomorrow, which is Saturday. The Gordon Endler Memorial Ride is an annual motorbike charity ride which raises money for Hampshire and Isle of Wight and Dorset and Somerset air ambulance charities. Mr Endler died in a road traffic incident in July 2020. His partner Jackie Stannett was on the back of the bike and survived thanks to the air ambulance lifting her to Southampton General Hospital. This is the 3rd time the ride has been held, and both previous rides have attracted over 100 bikes. Volunteer marshals will do their best to keep the bikes together. Organisers ask the public to be patient. The ride will start after a 12 p.m. meet for a 12:30 p.m. departure, as in previous years, but it has a new start point. Pit Stop Motorcycle Training has always linked their premises for the start, but they have moved to Wellington Road, Newport. Breaks will be taken at Freshwater Bay and Blackgang Viewpoint. The finish point is at Vincent's Motorcycles in Chapel Lane, Merston, where there will be a burger van. All bikers are welcome. Collection tins will be carried around the route.
COVID cases have risen on the Isle of Wight to such an extent it is now the 2nd worst area in the UK. As of last Friday, only Cambridge had a higher rolling rate out of all the lower tier local authority areas in the UK. The island's rolling rate per 100,000 people was then at 396.4, when the UK rate was 85.9. This only takes into account COVID-positive results that people have registered. Cases may be far higher if people haven't tested or recorded their result. There had been 564 new cases registered in the 7 days to last Friday. The island has had 41,972 COVID cases since the pandemic began. Of these, 2,255 are reinfections. Data from the government also shows the number of people in St Mary's Hospital with COVID. Most recent data from Tuesday, June the 28th, shows 11 COVID patients in hospital. However, none were using ventilation beds and haven't been since May the 10th. There is no stipulation that hospital visitors need to wear masks anymore.
Wight memories and nostalgia. Right. Tales of the crane at Wight's. The crane sat on rails that ran the length of the quay, which at the end of the day was supposed to be secured. This night it wasn't. A strong wind carried it along the rails, where it smashed through the end stops before toppling over. Barry Sowerbury, had first-hand experience of the crane when, as an apprentice, he was required to climb it one morning in 1964 to help with a repair. He had nothing to fear as staff at JS Wight sent him up fully equipped with two vital pieces of safety equipment: his hands. Baz takes up the story. The first part of the climb was up a ladder to a platform about 30 feet up, while the crane driver above continued his work, totally unaware of our presence. To get inside the crane structure needed good timing, trying to guess when the crane would stop moving long enough to step through onto a ladder. Then it was another 30-foot climb to the wheelhouse, followed by the most scary part, climbing up to the driver's cab as the final ladder was outside the main structure. Opening the wheelhouse door, you had to await the crane slewing around to a suitable position in order to step out onto the final ladder, which went up another 12 feet. Once on it, there was nought but fresh air between me and the ground below. Very scary for a 16-year-old. I hung on so tight my knuckles were white and my legs were shaking like a dog with a chill. Once inside the cab, I didn't want to leave because at last I felt safe. I couldn't think about the descent. We had to remove a heavy cast iron wheel about 2 feet in diameter. Once removed, we had the problem of getting it down to the ground. My colleague had attached to it a rope to lower it down, but we couldn't hold it and he said we would have to let it go. He shouted at the top of his voice, "Below!" and we watched as it hit the quay, bouncing a few times, with workmen scattering like starlings, accompanied by a cacophony of expletives.
More memories: butchers, bakers and menders. Gone are the times when one could do one's shopping in Newport High Street and at the same time pop into a restaurant cafe for a leisurely tea and cake. But the ever-increasing parking charges for car parks, etc., drove shoppers out of town to supermarkets. Still, let's look back at Newport's heyday, when there was a wide range of butchers, bakers, menders and candlestick makers. Regarding bakers and tea shops, perhaps one of the leading bakeries would have been Ray's at the top of High Street. Ray's distinctive dark blue liveried vans would be seen day in, day out, driving round the island, making copious deliveries and collections, and the extensive grocery store would always be bustling with customers throughout the day. Further along the High Street, opposite St James's Square, was Weeks's bakery, shop, restaurant and function rooms. Considered an upmarket tea rooms, this was another busy establishment of the time, and its function rooms were always fully booked for those important events of the day. Further along the High Street, practically opposite St Thomas's Square, was Harvey's restaurant. Here one would be served tea and cakes by a waitress dressed in black, with a white frilled pinafore, topped by a small white coronet headdress, while you slumbered in one of the Lloyd's Loom chairs, surrounding a glass-topped Lloyd Loom table, on which stood a cake stand heaving with cream cakes. Next stop would be the butcher's shop. In St James's Square was Hale's, one of Newport's many butcher's shops, which was sited next to NatWest Bank. After your visit to Hale's, you would leave with your Sunday joint tucked safely away. It must be said that paper bags and carrier bags were always ready at hand and free, and for your cakes you were supplied with a neat cardboard box, again no charge. Further down Lower St James's Street was Neat's, the ironmonger's, paraffin and candle dealer. Neat's operated a small fleet of 2 or 3 vans, calling door to door with deliveries, so if you did not want to visit the shop, then the shop would visit you. Finally, the much-needed cobbler. One of the last traditional cobblers operating was Mr Coward of Carisbrooke. It was said by some nameless clown in government circles that technology would give us more leisure time. However, what he failed to see was that progression is a treadmill, and the faster the wheel turns, the faster you must run to keep up. Perhaps the secret is not to play this game.
My view: growing old should be more graceful. My last comment was published in the Jubilee edition of the County Press. I wrote about an elderly family friend who was discharged from St Mary's as a bed blocker to a nursing home on the mainland. I changed her name to Mary. In a nutshell, she was discharged without her hearing aids, glasses, consent or understanding what was going on. One hearing aid was found, but the staff thought they knew better than the person who had been caring for Mary when she told them that the batteries only lasted 3 to 4 days, insisting that they lasted 7. So every Saturday, when Mary's carer went over to the mainland to see her, Mary, still with only one hearing aid, was and had been sitting there for 3 days with no hearing. Her anxiety levels through the roof. Mary has always thrived on communication and loves a good natter. She has been totally deprived of this due to carelessness, ignorance and neglect. She received a label without any assessment of dementia at the home. This was due to the fact that she seemed confused. Who wouldn't be confused if they were rendered deaf, blind and moved with no discussion from pillar to post, to be then kept in solitary confinement for months due to COVID, short staffing, misdiagnosis, etc., etc. She has since been moved back to the island into a place that has been super proactive in things like making sure her hearing batteries are changed, calling in chiropody, talking with her nearest and dearest. I missed a trick in my last column. Isn't it the case that afterwards you always think of something when it's too late? I should have compared and contrasted just how 2 elderly women were being treated that week. One who has never ever had to worry about anything remotely to do with the practicalities of life, had the biggest party of the decade with fanfares, superstars, feasting, broadcasts, flag waving and millions of pounds spent on the fact that she had survived so long. The other was stuck in solitary confinement in a care home, with no thought given to her need to hear, see and communicate. No feasting for her, no choice in what or when she ate, so she has lost weight. No choice to watch or listen to anything, or read, or have a natter with a friend. Because she had been catheterised in hospital, we are not encouraged to mobilise. She spent the whole Jubilee in her room, in bed, in nappies, as no one saw the importance of allowing her to use a toilet. Catheter and nappies are much more convenient when there's no staff or time to take people to the toilet. Mary now can't walk and seems to have retreated far, far into her mind. It's absolutely horrific, even more so because it is purely down to lack of funding and lack of respect for her as a human being. Mary has committed no crime except to grow old in a society that knows the cost of everything and the value of nothing.
Peggy Forward is a Sandown centenarian, and she writes, I've just been celebrating my 101st birthday and thinking how my age has crept up on me. I've never smoked, I'm not a great drinker, well, just the odd sherry or 2, and I've always kept active. Being born in the 1920s, during the reign of King George V, and before homes had television, internet or indoor toilets, gives me many memories. There were good times amongst the difficult years. King George and Queen Mary seemed very nice, but before the war you only ever saw pictures of them. My late father was the chief yeoman of signals and based at Culver, and during his career he taught Lord Mountbatten Morse code. My family moved into a Coast Guard cottage along Culver Parade. It had a kitchen range and an outside toilet. And as an 18-year-old, like all local girls, I had to do war work, which for me was making pontoon bridges for our armed forces. I worked at the Broadway Park Hotel, which was being used as a factory, and I still have my toolbox and a complete set of tools, just in case I need them again. During the war, I was also a lookout, standing on top of the Sandown Methodist Church in my tin hat, looking out for incendiary bombs and fires. But Shanklin got bombed more than Sandown. There was rationing, with small quantities of meat, and we were fortunate when they opened a soup kitchen in Albert Road. We enjoyed dances with the Canadian and American soldiers who were stationed in the bay. These were held in the town hall and Lake Manor House, which was where I met my future husband, who was a Marine. He was captured early in the war in Crete and was a prisoner of war for 4 years in a camp in Poland. The Americans liberated him and he was flown home in a Dakota. He had many, many bad experiences in those 4 years, and there was no counselling or support when they came home. I still have all of the letters that he sent at the time. We bought our home at the end of the war. It cost £850, and we had to make a deposit of £50, which was a lot at the time. I miss many things in Sandown: the cinemas, the Rivoli and Queen's, the theatre on the pier, singing with the town's Women's Guild choir in local care and nursing homes, and going round to a neighbour's house to watch the 1953 coronation of the Queen on a small black and white TV set. Living where I do, I have seen barbed wire and soldiers patrolling at Brown's and Yaverland Bandstand, a whale and a submarine being beached at Yaverland, and also the birth of my daughter Janet in the home where I still live. I've never driven, and we cycled everywhere, even when we had friends and families staying with us. I think that is why I have been able to enjoy the lifestyle that I have and maintain my independence for so long. And it's been lovely to see my grandchildren go to school locally. One feature of modern life I do like is sending text messages on my mobile phone. Meeting the Earl and Countess of Wessex recently was just one of many highlights of my life, alongside becoming Citizen of the Year in Sandown and being part of 50 plus clubs and the town's Women's Guild. Looking to the future, I would always encourage young people to exercise and look after their health, make a contribution to the community in which they live, and enjoy all of the things that living in the bay and on the island gives to you.
Public information. The Cabinet Connection by John Bacon, who's a Cabinet Member for Climate Change, Environment Heritage, Human Resources and Legal and Democratic Services. I'm writing this on Wednesday, distracted by events in Westminster and waiting to hear who is going to resign next. By the time you read this, our national government may have changed radically. It all goes to show that political infighting achieves little, whatever the reasons and whether justifiable or not. Currently, proposals and policies seem to appear from the central government more as a means to distract attention from arguments about who disgraced themselves or whether they forgot something, rather than being the core activity of government. I am glad that the key parts of my work as a Cabinet Member rise above such petty bickering. Unfortunately, we do experience this behaviour in the Council, when you would hope people would be united in trying to do the best for the island. It's a drain on time and achieves nothing at the end of the day. One area where we seem to be winning the battle in concentrating on important issues is in our response to climate change. A few still deny it exists or decry ways of addressing it. I am glad for all our sakes these voices are very much in the minority now. Our Mission Zero project is how we seek to achieve our carbon neutrality targets. As part of this process, we are creating groups of experts and representatives from particular areas, hubs, to feed their knowledge and experience into the process. It is good to see the breadth of experience we are bringing together and people focused on working together to achieve an important common aim. People see this as something bigger than the Council. It must have a life and a drive of its own and not be subservient to the sort of political wrangling I referred to above. The importance of what we are doing was highlighted a few days ago when the work done to date was presented to the Isle of Wight Association of Local Councils, IWALC. It was good to see the enthusiasm with which it was received and to hear how some areas, such as Ventnor, are already being very proactive and inspiring others. The next stage will be to seek to develop the enthusiasm of IWALC across the wider community, so we all understand what we can do practically to create a sustainable future for the island, its environment and its people. This will work is now getting underway, and I look forward to telling you about it soon.
Superintendent Jim Pegler says the community can be proud of its police service. I still hear people say we don't have enough police officers on the island. Of course we could do more work with more people, but our communities should be proud of their police service and be confident that we will serve them well and keep them safe. I believe that by April 2023 we will detect a higher percentage of crime on the island than in any local authority area in Hampshire. I believe in the people that serve you, and I strongly encourage the public to do the same. On June the 23rd, Island officers secured one of the first ever convictions in the country for non-fatal strangulation, demonstrating our teams are up to date and determined to keep victims safe. Domestic violence is an absolute priority for us. And if you need help and are not comfortable speaking with police, please contact a firm called Paragon, which is 0800 234 6266. Antisocial behaviour has been a concern for communities across the island. The excellent South Wight neighbourhood team have put in a lot of work alongside the council to address issues in Sandown and have also used dispersal powers there to move on youths involved in this poor behaviour, as have officers in Newport. It's so important that we understand young people and make sure there are facilities and activities available in the community, especially for the less privileged children. Our high harm team pick off individuals or groups who bring the most pain and suffering to communities. They're not a drugs team, but often drug-related violence and exploitation are big causes of harm. In the last week alone, they have removed lots of drugs from our streets. On June the 28th, police seized a very large quantity of Class A drugs in Portsmouth and arrested and charged 2 island men for supply offences. This superb result came from intelligence gathering and monitoring by our island high harm team. Just a day later, the team discovered a building filled with approximately 100 cannabis plants in Newport, and 2 men were arrested on suspicion of being involved in the production of these drugs. Earlier in the month, officers seized Class A and B drugs, along with cash, during a warrant in Freshwater, having just a few days prior made some drug arrests in Shanklin. On June the 10th, they joined forces with Ryde neighbourhood officers to carry out a warrant on Ashy Road, where drugs and weapons were seized. If you cause pain and misery on the island, you can expect a visit from the team.
What's on? Isle of Wight Nostalgia Evening is on Saturday the 16th of July at Freemasons Lodge, Lugeley Street, Newport, from 7 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. All proceeds raised go to local charities. Bangers and mash are included in the price, and our raffle prizes are welcome. It's £8 per ticket, and tickets are available at Price's Garage.
The Lionheart Festival will bring joy, hope and faith. The Lionheart Festival is a new 3-day celebration of Christian music and message by leading national and international musicians, which starts next Friday. It will be held at the County Showground Northwood from July the 15th to the 17th and will feature songwriters such as Graham Kendrick, known to many as the father of modern worship music and best known for penning Shine, Jesus, Shine. Other performers will include Roger Samuels, who has appeared on television in the UK version of The Voice, and Amy Faith Morley. The Lionheart Festival offers something for people of all ages with the children's ministry Limitless Kids, hosted by an experienced husband and wife duo and their team. The festival is headed up by Joe Shermer and Laura Stewart-Smith, together with a team of trustees, volunteers and helpers from across the island. Many island churches and businesses are also supporting the event, and the organisers believe the festival will bring joy, hope and faith to those who attend. The Lionheart Festival is a charity, and the entry fee has been kept low to make it affordable to as many people as possible. For a limited period, tickets are buy one, get one free, and can be purchased via their website, which is lionheartfestival.co.uk or on the gate on the Times.
Isle of Wight Jazz Weekend is on the 15th to the 18th of September 2022. Leanne Carroll Trio will be there, as will Sarah Dowling Quartet, Alan Barnes plus 11, O'Higgins and Luft, Karen Sharp Trio, Nigel Price Organ Quartet, It's Trad Dad, Hexagonal, a tribute to modern jazz quartet, Dave Newton and Ewan Stevenson Duo, plus still more to be booked. And there's lots of local fringe gigs too. Tickets are on sale now, and see the website for all details, which is iwjazzweekend.co.uk.
Wacky, Weird and Wonderful. Ventnor Fringe is back this month. The festival gives people the chance to dip in and out of a myriad of shows, from comedy to poetry, music to creative workshops. The printed programme will be available from Ventnor Exchange and the shelves of other retail outlets on Wednesday. Details of events at vfringe.co.uk. Tickets can be purchased from here. Some sessions have already sold out, such as Tatty Divine's jewellery making workshops, so don't delay. And here's a look at some of what will be happening in Ventnor during the annual festival. Music industry legends Julian Littman, Jerry Rafferty, Dexys Midnight Runners, Steel Eye Span, and songwriter Charlie Dore, pilot of the airwaves, are coming back to Ventnor Fringe. Between them, they have a lifetime of achievement in performance on the West End stage, TV, film, radio, recording and touring. Their show is at St Catherine's Church at 7 p.m. on Friday, July the 22nd. It's sad Shakespeare hasn't written anything new for more than 400 years. Well, hold on to your doublets, ruffs and trunk hose. The bard is back. With story and verse improvised in the moment, enjoy a riotous new Shakespeare play every time, performed by impromptu Shakespeare's whip-smart cast. Packed with priceless wit, lyrical smarts, romance and a dash of double-crossing, this leading ensemble do the bard proud with a brand new hit every time, inspired by audience suggestions. The Magpie Tent in Ventnor Park will host their performances on July the 29th, 30th and 31st. A firm favourite with audiences at Ventnor Exchange will be Rob Orton's The Crowd Show, his first time at the Fringe. Dubbed the Brian Cox of comedy by The Guardian, Rob has written 8 hit Edinburgh Fringe shows, which have led to nationwide tours and television and radio appearances. Rob will be at the Nest, Ventnor Park, at 6 p.m. on Saturday, July the 23rd. International prankster and creator of Lee Nelson, Simon Brodkin is heading to Ventnor Fringe for the first time with new material. Famous for his infamous pranks to public figures such as Sepp Blatter, Donald Trump and Theresa May, he's since been touring his highly praised stand-up show around the country. Catch him at the Magpie on Sunday, July the 24th, but book soon as his tickets are flying.
What's on at Shanklin Theatre? Theatre Train are delighted to be bringing Broadway's sparkling new fall musical Disney and the Little Mermaid to Shanklin Theatre with their cast of talented island performers. This show will be a wonderful experience for the audience of families and children with many toe-tapping tunes. Tickets are £14 for adults and under 12s are £12, and the performances are on Saturday the 9th of July at 1400 and 17:30, and on Sunday the 10th of July again at 1400 and at 17:30. Beyond the West End 2022, for 13 years Spotlight Isle of Wight have produced the most entertaining musical variety show on the Isle of Wight. Every summer we have been selling out Shanklin Theatre with our fast-paced production, packed full of songs and routines from the greatest musicals, iconic movie soundtracks and songs from stadium-filling performers. Tickets are £18.50, concessions are £17.50, under 16s are £13.50 and FOSS members are £16.50. Party rates are available. All the performances are in the evening at 20:15 and are on Thursday 14th of July, the 21st of July, the 28th of July, the 4th of August, 11th of August, 18th of August, 25th of August, 1st of September, 8th of September, 15th of September and the 22nd of September. The 2022 tour of The Wall of Floyd will see the band touring the UK and overseas. For those Pink Floyd fans who have not seen The Wall of Floyd before, be prepared for a spectacular show that will remain in your hearts long after the event has ended. The band deliver a spectacular live musical performance enhancing the latest digital technology to perform unforgettable fan favourites from across Pink Floyd's back catalogue of 15 albums. The tickets are £24 and that includes a £1 booking fee, and that is on the Friday the 15th of July at 19:30. Hello Again, a tribute to Neil Diamond, the world's greatest celebration, and the life and work of Neil Diamond, starring Brooklyn, Creed and the Salvation Band. Using evocative imagery, video and narration to enhance the magic, this show takes you on a musical journey through Neil Diamond's glittering 50-year-old career. Tickets are £27.50. That also includes a £1 booking fee, and that's on Saturday the 16th of July at 19:30.
Now we go to letters. Andrew Evans of Ely, Cambridgeshire writes, "Rail plan fail? ? He has read letters and other reports on the proposed Isle of Wight rail reopening with interest. There can be little doubt that the island's people and economy, especially the tourist industry, would benefit if this can be done effectively and efficiently, and importantly if rail fares, timings and frequencies are attractive enough for people to leave their cars at home. For the greatest benefit, the bus service would need to be integrated with rail to provide the most comprehensive network possible. However, some fundamental infrastructure problems would need to be overcome. The original routes closed in the 1950s and 60s were less than ideal. Ventnor Station overlooked the town at a great height, involving potential passengers in a steep climb from the centre, and the ride to Newport line was extremely circuitous, making for lengthy journeys. The viaduct approaching Newport and the tunnel approaching Ventnor would also be hugely expensive to reinstate. I suspect these problems mean that the project is unfortunately doomed to failure, and that government rejection of the idea was inevitable.
Schools need to think before committing to academisation. Eric Hemmings, chair of the governors of Oakfield C of E Primary School, says the following: "While I agree entirely with Peter Sheave that parents, pupils, staff and the community need to ask questions to ensure academisation is the best option, I wonder whether he has considered the fact that all the island's academies were rated good at their most recent Ofsted inspections, whereas 11 island LA maintained schools, more than a quarter of the remainder, were rated requires improvement. Hopefully they are all well on their way to a more favourable judgment. The quote from Emma Knights, Chief Executive of the National Governance Association, may have been taken out of context. She was quite rightly making the point that the financial implications are much tougher in that there is much stricter financial discipline. Academies are required to commit to surplus budgets and to remain within them in year or face challenge which could lead ultimately to the cancellation of their funding agreements if they do not respond positively to a notice to improve. Emma references to governors repenting. If they buy into a trust that is flashy and makes a lot of promises but doesn't deliver, it must also be right. Governing bodies should expect to undertake thorough due diligence before committing their schools to join a strong multi-academy trust, ensuring especially that the MAT adopts the right approach to creating freedom to act for their head teachers, enabling them to judge for themselves what is relevant in their local communities, in continuously improving the education and life chances of their pupils.
Graham Lascelles of Wootton writes of discrimination via technology. Once upon a time, the king or queen of the sea crabs decided it would be a good idea if instead of walking sideways, all the baby crabs went to school to learn to walk properly. On the first morning they went to school walking sideways, but came back home walking forwards. However, they could never remember the lessons overnight and always went back to school walking sideways, so eventually gave up. At 76, such is my increasing experience with smart tech. I can be taught how to operate a website every morning, only to completely forget how to do it by that afternoon. Muscle memory is a thing of the past. Although doing it every day for 30 plus years, I now sometimes can't remember the correct order of buttons to operate my microwave, TV control or computer. I sometimes just press random buttons until something eventually works. The real aggravation is I cannot then remember what I pressed last. While just about managing email, with the help of spell check, I can now only remember 3 numbers at a time, have fingers too thick to type them into a small keyboard, and a brain too slow to fill in all the spaces before the machine times out. There is a growing and accelerating trend for access to their services, for companies and institutions, for their own convenience and increased profits, to assume and almost demand that the public owns a smartphone or has a bank account. The much publicised case of Wight refusing to accept cash is only the latest in this movement. Giving universal access to online services is only part of the answer. Not everyone will ever be able to access a bank account or own and operate a smartphone. This creates a whole group of mainly elderly and or vulnerable disenfranchised individuals. Is this not discrimination and therefore unlawful? Should not an alternative non-digital and inclusive method, such as cash or human operator, always be available for accessing these services?
Martin Jones of Ryde writes, being prepared to work harder has its own rewards. Many will say that my wife and I are in a privileged position. We sold our old home, moved to a doer-upper on the island, and have a balance in the bank that should last until we get the house sorted. But no one gave this to us. We worked for it. We had 3 unplanned kids in the first 30 months of our marriage. 2 were twins. Saddled with a new mortgage, we had almost immediately lost one income, and 3 kids, even in the 1980s, were expensive. Being an unskilled worker, my solution was to get a second part-time job. In fact, for a period of time, I was holding down 3 jobs and not a lot of free time. I accept that the employment market has changed, but I am hearing that there are now record numbers of job vacancies out there. It might not be the answer for everybody, but I will bet that there are some families in the country who are living off the state but could work, or complaining about an insufficient wage but refuse to do more than their 39-hour week. My comments are not meant to offend. We all have different circumstances. But it was only a couple of years ago, in the midst of the pandemic, that the majority of us were all pulling together. I despair at the fact that now looming strikes and industrial action are set to pull this country apart, when there is the possibility of potential for a better solution, if some of us are prepared to put ourselves out. Easy for me to say in my privileged situation. Believe me, in a couple of years, when my hard-earned nest egg is depleted, I will certainly be out there looking for a company prepared to take on a willing worker, albeit in his twilight years.
Alexander Hopkinson Woolley of Bembridge says our Queen is hard-working. Mrs. Kelly, writing in the county press of the 1st of July, seems not to have noticed the immense contribution to the welfare of the whole world made by the Commonwealth of Nations, whose wonderful works have been so carefully nurtured by the tireless efforts of the Queen. Her assiduous attention to the affairs of this country, as well as those of the rest of the world, has most helpfully informed a long succession of Prime Ministers, as they regularly acknowledge. If everyone else in the country worked even half as hard as she, we would be in a much stronger economic position.
Penny Drew of Sandown writes, Tory works of fiction affect us all. The National Audit Office has just announced it is to launch an investigation into the Conservative Party's 2019 general election manifesto pledge to build 40 new hospitals by 2030. There's also Bob Seeley's promise of an island deal. Has anyone seen anything yet? And there's the latest Tory work of fiction and promise to build a nuclear power station every year. The government's lies and spin becomes bigger and more bizarre daily, and when things don't go their way, they simply change the rules, like the triple lock that's been shelved to the financial detriment of millions of pensioners who are reliant on the state pension keeping pace with inflation and the rising cost of living. This is going to have a huge detrimental impact on many of the elderly in our society, and coincidentally is something that is likely to disproportionately affect the island, given recent census findings that show the number of islanders over retirement age has increased by over 20%. The government has just finalised the introduction of its Integrated Care Partnership, IPCs, which will force NHS trusts to put out to tender many of their services. The private health service has been for some time now cherry-picking the most financially lucrative areas of healthcare to deliver for the NHS. Coincidentally, last week, the highly respected medical journal The Lancet published its report into how the private medical sector was performing in this regard. It didn't make for comfortable reading. Many of these for-profit organisations were found to be providing a substandard service. Their purpose, of course, is to line the pockets of their owners and shareholders. A government that truly cared about its people would invest in their health and well-being, not plunder and divert the public money that funds it into the pockets of its friends, many with holdings in offshore tax havens. But as we all know, we stupidly elected a UK government and political party that, wherever you look, is shown to be both intellectually and morally bankrupt.
That is the end of the letters section, so it's goodbye from Kate.
And goodbye from Jerry.
The In Touch programme follows, and the scaffolding news follows that. 2 topics, rebuilding Ukraine and tennis. Two UK-based charities, Blind Veterans UK and Bravo Victor, were invited to Ukraine and met with the government there to see how they can help rebuild the country's visual impairment rehabilitation services and assist with research facilities to help deal with the ongoing emergency. Nick Kaplan is the Chief Executive of Blind Veterans UK, and he tells us about the outcome of the visit and their collective plans moving forward. Rally, Serve, Love. That's right, it's tennis season. We hear about an initiative from New Zealand that is providing visually impaired tennis fans with more information about what is happening on court. It is called Action Audio. And using spatial audio data, it allows people to hear what kind of serve was given, where the ball lands in relation to the court lines, and more. Tim Devine is one of the founders of Action Audio, and he talks us through how it works. We also speak to Ivan Rodriguez Deb, who is currently Britain's #1 in the B4 men's visually impaired singles category. He tells us about his career aspirations and about the kinds of adaptations he makes, given he has some residual sight.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Well, that was tennis, but not as we know it. But a preview of how visually impaired people might be able to get more out of Wimbledons of the future. And we'll be talking to one of the UK's most promising visually impaired tennis players later in the programme. But before all that, we return to the harsh realities of Ukraine. I'm sure you remember during the first few weeks of the country coming under Russian attack, we reported here on In Touch on attempts to help blind people who wanted to leave the country, and the recognition that at some point rehabilitation services would have to be rebuilt, not least because of the increased numbers of visually impaired people inevitably created by war casualties.
I fear that soon the war in Ukraine will disappear from headlines. People will forget about it, but the problem will remain, and people will need just as much help in few months as they are now or as they were a month ago. I just hope that there will be more significant help provided to those people in need. I really hope so.
Well, that was Olga Mahler, who had returned to the country of her birth to give what help she could. And we can now report on an initiative designed to help Ukrainians cope with the situation that Olga describes. Two British-based charities, Blind Veterans UK and Bravo Victor, were invited to Ukraine and have signed an agreement with the government there to use these organisations' wide experience to provide rehabilitation and research facilities to deal with the emergency. Nick Kaplan, Chief Executive of Veterans UK and trustee of Bravo Victor, told me about the situation that they found there.
Trying to get accurate numbers of people who have been blinded as a result of the war is far from straightforward. That said, we did manage to have discussions with a number of ministers, including Internal Affairs, who look after the border guards and police, for example. We were given numbers from Internal Affairs, which recorded the number of people who had been completely blinded, and it reconfirmed in our minds that this is a significant issue. So that was just for a small element of their security infrastructure. If you can put on top of that their defenders, their army, and everybody who's actually fighting the war, you're up to another scale completely. So whilst we don't have accurate numbers at the moment, we're doing work on that with Bravo Victor to try and get a better insight.
So what do you see as priorities? Because I believe existing rehab facilities themselves have come under Russian attack.
Yes, and this, Peter, goes back to the start of the war, because it was on the Eastern Front in the main to begin with, and that's where many of the casualties were being received, and that's where much of the treatment was set up to support them. So they had rehabilitation facilities for the combatants who'd been damaged in the East, but those facilities are no longer functioning. effectively, they don't have a rehabilitation system in place. So there are elements here and there, but in the main they don't. And as a good example of that, they had a centre for rehabilitation in a suburb called Borodyanka, just to the north of Kyiv, which received just horrific damage from the invading forces a couple of months ago, damage to infrastructure and to people. So that centre of rehabilitation, veterans rehabilitation in Borodyanka, is just a wreck. It's a shell today, but it will be the focus for their rebirth, if you will, the start of their new rehabilitation capability or system going forward. So the essence of the support that we will be providing, both in terms of rehabilitation and research, is to help Ukrainians help Ukrainians. So it's to build the Ukrainian capabilities so they are best placed themselves going forward.
I understand you feel that some help might be needed in convincing some of the people who've been blinded or have lost degrees of sight that rehabilitation is actually possible.
Yes. As you know, Peter, rehabilitation is a journey. Those people from the Ukraine forces who find themselves seriously disabled seriously wonder about the value that they can add to life going forward and worry about them being a drain rather than somebody who could actually support the rebirth of Ukraine. So we heard more than once the idea that the disabled veteran would rather die than live on as a disabled veteran through rehabilitation. And I think that's understandable. We've recognised a little bit of that through our own experience within blind veterans, but I think it demonstrates the work that we've got to do, because we need to get alongside, help Ukrainians build this understanding and start the very important process of working with mindsets and beginning to open up the ideas of opportunities going forward and how rich and fulfilling lives can be lived and how there will be every and any opportunity to support the rebuilding of Ukraine going forward.
Including a perfectly reasonable range of jobs that people could do, although they've lost their sight.
Yes, absolutely. And, this is an area where there has been quite a bit of focus in Ukraine, and a lot of their support to the blind and partially sighted has been in the area of employment, overcoming barriers and opening up opportunities. I think they would be the first ones to say that although that's been where much of their focus has been, there's still quite a lot of work to do. And I really appreciated their sort of openness, their honesty in that, and their desire to work with professionals, work with others from countries such as ourselves in building their capability, building their awareness, education, developing their professions. And we got into this also in the area of disability sport, because they are very clear that disability sport is a very powerful way of helping rehabilitation journeys and opening up opportunities, and they are very keen to work with us and others to develop knowledge, understanding and awareness of that also.
Nick Kaplan, thank you very much. And we'll certainly stay in touch with Veterans UK to follow the work that they're doing. Nick talked there about the rehabilitative value of sport, which leads neatly on to the next item. Regular listeners will know by now that I'm a bit of a sports nut. And at the moment, when I'm not following the latest test match, and what a win that was earlier today, I'm glued to Wimbledon on TV by listening like this.
15, love.
Yes, I know there's a radio commentary and I could listen to that. Very good it is too. But it's not too hard to follow tennis on TV by sound alone once you know who's serving. It's more like being there as well. But it's possible that I'll be able to follow next year's Wimbledon by listening to sounds accompanying the streamed event in real time, designed to give a visually impaired fan much more information about what's actually going on in the match. It's been featured at Australia's Open, and it's also been tested here in Britain at a pre-Wimbledon tournament. Someone who's been involved with almost every aspect of the Action Audio System, as it's known, is Tim Devine. Tim is Executive Director of Innovation at digital design company AKQA. He joined me earlier this morning from New Zealand and he told me more about it, including a demonstration of how it works.
Our job in creating Action Audio was to fill an information gap. So we sort of had to deconstruct the idea of, or the essence of tennis, and then fill in the gaps using abstract sounds that are kind of in counterpoint to maybe closed captions or any other sort of verbalized or textual descriptions. So when it's hit and moves through the air, you can hear it moving through the air and it will sound like this. When a player hits a forehand, it sounds like this. When they hit a backhand, it sounds like this. And when it lands on the court, you'll be able to hear how close it is to the line, and that will sound like this if it's not very close to the line, and like this if it's very close to the line. So when we were designing the principles that we created for Action Audio, we wanted it to be listenable by anyone. That's what sport is. The second principle was about making it familiar, and many of you may be familiar with blind tennis. And in blind tennis, there's a rattle in the ball. A rattle is a very good sound character for some sound locating. So it works very well in 3D audio.
Okay, so you have to learn these things before you can really make the best use of your system.
Absolutely, yeah. But we can see a system in the near future. We're developing a new system which will allow people to curate a little bit more the sounds that they're interested in, and to maybe expand also the I guess in that sense, the vocabulary of the sounds that align to what's happening in the game.
So in the simplest terms, what does a visually impaired listener need in the way of equipment to be able to access this?
For the last, we've run it for 2 Australian Opens, and we've just done it at the Queen's Club tournament before Wimbledon this year. They were radio streams, so we streamed them online. We also had a Google Action, so you could listen to it easily or kind of call it up on your smart home devices. The basics would be streaming online. What our intention is for the next tournament, so whether that's the US Open or the Australian Open next year, is to have it as part of what's called an OTT broadcast, which would be audio and video streaming in sync. We know that from our testing, people watch tennis irrespective of their visual impairment. So they'll take what they can out of it. And also by adding the Action Audio sounds to it, we can create a more augmented experience for them. So that the goal will be in the future for it to be part of a visual experience as well. We're really excited to launch at the Australian Open next year, pilot to do it live in stadium so that people can have the Action Audio experience at the stadium while the tennis is happening there in front of them.
Sounds like you're quite a long way ahead with this. Why not Wimbledon now? You did this tournament here at Queen's Club, as you said, but why not the big one?
Yeah, it's a good question. So at the moment, the service is really reliant on partnerships. And I think, we worked closely with the LTA this year, and we worked with the RNIB and British Blind Sports as well to realise it this year at the Queen's Club Championships. And I think it's about having the relationship, I suppose. And I think it's, slowly, but surely, as we got so much great feedback from this, last week or the week before at Queen's Club, it's essential that it becomes something that is consistent in a service across all tennis events and then into other sports.
So Wimbledon next year?
I hope so, yeah.
And what could its application be to other sports? Cricket, my love, soccer, rugby?
Absolutely, yeah. That's, as I said, I think the easiest way to think about it is it fills an information gap. It fills a gap where you may not get the information that you might want to be getting, whether it be through commentary or the audio of the game itself. And I think a good thing to think about what Action Audio's intention is, it's about allowing people to make their own appraisals of what's happening. So just rather than having a commentator, and I'm a massive fan of cricket, and cricket has a great history of, colourful, wonderful commentary. this is kind of, the idea is to give people their own agency to make up their own mind, and that can complement commentary as well. So yeah, the intention is to go to cricket and football and all sports, really.
That was Tim Devine, one of the designers of Action Audio. Well, one tennis enthusiast who probably wouldn't need all those whistles and bells to enjoy the tennis, but who has been listening to it, is Ivan Rodriguez Deb. Now, you heard Tim mentioning blind tennis there, but Ivan has enough sight to play the VI version of the game and indeed play it very well. Although only 16, he's Britain's #1 men's player in his sight category, B4. Ivan, first of all, what did you make of that? It's not quite the real thing, is it?
No, but it sounded like an amazing system. It'd be great to see how visually impaired and blind tennis players use this system, not just to watch the match in sort of its fuller form, but also to analyse matches so that they can implement maybe certain tactics into their own playing.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if it actually arrives here at Wimbledon next year. Let's come back to you. 16, a pretty young age to be national men's champion in your category. What's the next step? World champion?
Definitely. I mean, I'd love to bring back gold for GB, but also on lots of other parameters. I'd love for it to have that kind of exposure to larger events like Wimbledon, which we've seen in other sort of disability sports like wheelchair. And I'd love to see the sport to continue to grow, because the more people that know about it, the more momentum will be gained in that sense. For that to happen, integration and sort of local club level needs to be done.
Well, let's try and help a bit with that. And tell us a bit more about playing tennis with your degree of sight. I mean, what adaptations have you had to make? Because presumably the kind of tennis you play is, in essence, very like the tennis that's being played at Wimbledon.
Yes, I mean, it's very similar in lots of ways. The court size is quite similar, although the baseline is slightly shorter. And then the way it's played, the point system, serving, that's all exactly the same. The only thing that is slightly different would be the ball, which would be a sponge ball with a bell inside it, obviously, to help track that ball. So that helps people track the ball because it's slower, and also you can hear its progress in the air.
Because you did start to play what I might call mainstream tennis. I mean, how tricky was that? What were the difficulties that made you think, I'm going to need to go to this kind of VI category of tennis?
Yes, I did start playing mainstream tennis when I was 8, and gradually I just found that was harder to keep up with not only the speed of the ball but different spins. And that's when I started trying to look for other sort of sports, disability sports that I might be able to play in. And that's how I found out about VI tennis.
And I think you've had quite a lot of family backing, haven't you?
Yes, I have. It's definitely been a family effort because, fortunately, again, with the sort of lack of exposure, not a lot of people know that these sports actually even exist, so they won't look for them. So at the beginning, I started training with my brother. He was my first coach, really. And then eventually I managed to find, a qualified coach. So, yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
So what's the next big event? I mean, you mentioned bringing back gold medals, so this is presumably a Paralympic event.
No, actually, unfortunately, for the B4 category, tennis is not hosted as a Paralympic event, which is really frustrating, actually.
Right.
But the next
so are you pushing for that then? Is that another thing you're campaigning for?
Yes, definitely. That's one of our aims, to get that included, because it obviously is a very relevant category. And I think people would enjoy playing and watching it. So the next sort of big tournament would be, there's an international tournament in Gdansk. So that would be my next aim.
Right. But you weren't joking about world champion and gold medals. That's your aim.
Definitely. Yeah, that's the big aim.
Mm. Also, I mean, you are quite an all-rounder, aren't you? It's not all sport in your case. I believe you're an accomplished musician as well.
Well, I do dedicate quite a lot of time to music. Yes, I love music. And I also do a lot of studying, especially, at this time in my life.
Ivan Rodriguez, Deb, thank you very much indeed. And that's it for today. Do let us hear your views and comments about anything you've heard. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk, leave voice messages on 0161 836 1338. And you can always go to our website for more information and to download tonight's and previous editions of the programme. That's bbc.co.uk/in touch. From me, Peter Wight, producer Beth Hemmings and studio manager Jonathan Esp, goodbye.
The Scaffolding and Skips news for week commencing 11th of July 2022. Newport area. The Old Mill, St Cross Lane. Lighthouse Medical Centre, 62 Crocker Street. Exchange House, St Cross Lane. Newport Minster, St Thomas's Square. 29A Lugley Street and St James Street. Chantry House, Pyle Street. 15 High Street. 127 and 128 High Street, which is Superdrug. Isle of Wight County Club, 18A St James's Square. The Halifax 116 High Street.
Cowes, 82 Park Road, 2 Brooklands Road, 21A Newport Road.
Ryde, the Crown Inn Pub, St Thomas's Square and High Street. Ryde Masonic Hall, John Street. 42 George Street. 10 Wyndham House, Melville Street. The Sloop Inn, Mill Square. 52 Union Street. Jack's, 75 Union Street.
Ryde Skips, 21A and 22A Cross Street, 53 St Michael's Avenue, 9 Daniel Street, The Cottage, Upper Green Road, St Helens.
Seaview, Warren Boats in Blewett Avenue. And Seaview Skips outside the Buccaneers Ferry Road.
Sandown 20 High Street and Ventnor, Ash Farm, Ventnor Road, Whitwell, and Ventnor Seawall, Belgrave Road.